Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Some unexpected value from a card in Germany which featured 3 heavyweight fights that I want to cover in this video. We had some insights from that card, and I got to say the ceiling for some of these fighters is looking a little bit lower as a result. So on the card you had Mourad Aliev, the French Olympian. He was facing Ali Kydin. You had Jose Lardway, the Cuban heavyweight. He was facing the durable Ukrainian Kostiantyn Dovbyshchenko. And also we'll cover in this video the very raw, and he calls himself fresh, Ben Adwubi. So he was facing a journeyman, very well travelled, over 60 fights on the ledger, roughly an even split of wins and losses, Muahmmed Ali Durmaz. But I wanted to start first with Jose Lardway. So a former amateur sort of standout, not necessarily at heavyweight. He did fight at a lower weight. He's come up over time. And one of the things that's always been a bit of a question with him, especially in the last couple of years as he's continued to sort of make his way up slowly in the heavyweight division under Universum, his weight. And it was a case that did not do him any favors in this fight. First 3-4 rounds was fine. He looked good. He was obviously levels above his opponent, Kostiantyn Dovbyshchenko, who's had good fights previously with the likes of Vladislav Sarenko. He's also fought Alexander Zarkozy, and those were distance fights. This guy is durable. He can take a punch, but not only that, he's game. He will throw punches back. The first 3 rounds or so, he was just not in the fight. You had a guy in Jose Lardway who was pressing forward. It was very intelligent pressure. It was controlled. He was able to work to body and head, and he was putting a bit of a pasting on his Ukrainian journeyman opposition. I mean, let alone with this fight, why is Lardway at this point still facing this level of opposition? He's better than that. That's what I was thinking in those first 3 rounds. But the tables turned a bit. And this was because the conditioning of Lardway was exposed. And perhaps it's lucky that he wasn't sort of progressed too quickly and that this level of opponent was thrown in his way right now, because he didn't look great in those final rounds. I'm not even sure what the scores were. Obviously, it was a decision win in the end, but those final 4 rounds, he was fading. Into the 4th round, he had open mouth, and his breathing was starting to get increasingly ragged through the remainder of the fight. He was losing his shape. But not only that, Dovbyshchenko, who I mentioned was game, was really starting to put it on him. He was starting to have success, land good shots, big shots, shots that Lardway shouldn't have been taking because his gas tank should have been a lot better. And it's not like he was going a million miles an hour in those first 3 rounds. There were spurts where he would sort of up the effort, put it on Dovbyshchenko and try to get him out of there and really just try to have his way with him. And he was, but he couldn't really put a huge dent in him. And he paid the price in the end in those final 4 rounds. And he's at least 10 to 15 pounds above where he should be. And I think this is a real wake-up call for Jose Lardway, because he can't be this heavy, over where he should be, and then fading badly against journeyman level opposition. Because what happens at the next level, or a couple of levels up from where he's fighting, he gets stopped. He will get hit by bigger punches who will take advantage of him slowing down. They will work to the body. They will knock him out. For all his talent, he has shown that his conditioning is not good enough to cut it at the next level. So it was really disappointing from that aspect that he just blew so badly and just faded so badly in that second half. It's not like he was on the verge of getting stopped, but if you imagined a better opponent who had a bit of pop, they would have taken advantage. So you can't be doing that going forward. And it raises questions about his camp, the diet, the lifestyle. Is he just, now that he's not in Cuba, he's living in Germany, is he just enjoying things just a little too much? And perhaps the caliber of the opponents as well. Is that an issue, that he knew that he was going to win this fight, so he didn't train as hard as he needed to really sort of sparkle the way that he should have? Like I say, it was night and day. The first 3 or 4 rounds, he looked pretty good. But then after that, pretty average. Anyway, moving on to Mourad Aliev, Ali Kydin. So this was hugely exciting for the first few rounds, because you had Mourad Aliev, the French Olympian. You might recall he was disqualified against Fraser Clark for fouls, etc. But he is a guy from that school of zero power that Otto Wallin, Joseph Parker, and others reside in. He just couldn't knock the skin off a rice pudding. He was landing straight left hands for fun against his much smaller opponent. It was almost comical. It was like some David versus Goliath type scene, and he was just unloading on Kydin, but he's got no power. He could not hurt him, could not move him. He was just, at will landing. And over the course of the fight, it just became, as sad as this sounds, a guy that's landing punches, and the other guy can't do too much. It became pretty repetitive and boring. If he had an ounce or a skerrit of power, he would have stopped him early. And we've seen Kydin stopped early by the likes of Hemi Ahil, who we know has got a bit of pop. But Ali Kydin was just taking everything from Murad Aliev, eating it like Tic Tacs, just didn't have an issue with it. It was only towards the end of the fight where he started to get worn down by accumulation. And finally, in the 9th round, after basically just putting a beating on Kydin across the fight, he drops him, and shortly after, a couple more shots come in, the referee finally jumps in. Bit of a mercy stoppage. Kydin, he was his own worst enemy. He just wanted to keep going. But, Murad Aliev just can't punch. And that's a real shame, because if he had some power, he would be a real threat. There's not too many guys that are sort of, 6'5", 6'6", southpaw, and that can bang a bit. I can think of Bakadir Jalalov. He's coming through, but the difference between him and Aliev is night and day on the power front. And this is something that is going to hamper Aliev going forward. Because the thing is, while he's got good height, good skills, he's a decent technician, fighting guys like Kydin is one thing. But at a few rungs up the ladder, he's not going to have it all his own way. The height advantage won't be, 6 to 8 inches as it was for this fight. He's not going to be able to just boss it and be at range pot-shotting his opponents. In fact, he was quite open at times and was getting caught with the odd shot, shots that he maybe shouldn't have got caught with. But the thing is, I guess for this one, he didn't really matter too much what was happening, because he was landing about 95% of the punches. But the power is just a real issue. And I think if anyone was projecting him to go far in the heavyweight division, to become a potential champion, I think you should reassess. I think Murad Aliev, based on what we've seen, is a guy that he might be able to sort of climb towards that top 20 level, but it's going to be probably decision wins that are getting him anywhere in the heavyweight division, because it won't be no knockouts, because he just does not have the power. And if you can't keep guys off you at the top level or towards the top level, you're going to come under increasing pressure, and those big guys who can actually box with you and can hurt you, they can do damage. Moving on to the third fight. So you had, and I hadn't seen him fight before, Ben Fresh Adwubi. So he was facing Muahmmed Ali Durmaz, and it was a really interesting fight for a few reasons, because Adwubi was just so raw. So he's a big German heavyweight. I'm not sure where his family comes from, but obviously a big unit. He could punch a bit, but super, super raw. So the first round, he was biting on every single foot feint and reacting to it. He started to settle down, and he started to become a little bit more rough and rugged, and he ended up dropping his opponent, Muahmmed Ali Durmaz. What was it in the second round? It was a wild right hand. It drops Durmaz. Moving into the third round, couple of knockdowns. One of them, Durmaz was saying, started with a bit of head contact, and he was sort of playing it up on the canvas. And actually, there were a few moments where Durmaz was really playing it up. He took a shot or two after the bell to the body at the end of the first round, and there ended up being about 2 minutes worth of between round break. The referee didn't talk to anyone. He just allowed it to go on. There was, Durmaz sort of basically hamming it up on the canvas for well over a minute before eventually trudging back to his corner. He wanted to get Ben Fresh Adwubi either taken a point or disqualified, and maybe he had a case for a point to be taken, but the referee, who had an incredible moustache, just seemed to let all these weird things go. I mean, you had Durmaz on the floor after that second knockdown complaining of a head clash, and actually he did come up with a big welt under his left eye, which he was not happy about. Even after the fight, he was sort of remonstrating with the referee and also yelling out just to anyone who would listen. But ultimately, it sort of was going one way by that third round, and the second knockdown in the third round, the referee, pretty much that was it. So Ben, fresh Adwubi, based on what I've seen, I mean, he's young, he can punch a bit, but super raw. I mean, one of the rawest prospects I've seen in quite a while. So he moved to 5-0, and we'll have to see what happens with him. But in terms of that German scene, some of these guys are fighting on these Universum cards. There's not too many other sort of big name cards at the moment. Agi Cabello just doesn't seem to want to fight. He's got a fight scheduled rescheduled for March or April. Was meant to happen in January, but he's only been fighting once a year for the past 5 years. He is the Gary Russell Jr. of the heavyweight division. So the German scene's a bit dead right now, we have to say. There's not a whole lot to look forward to. You've got Victor Jerk, who's coming through a little bit as well. Peter Kideru lost his most recent fight, or a fight ago, where he was knocked out unexpectedly. Some of these guys who are plainly traded in Germany now, not actually Germans, it just kind of feels like there's nothing much doing at the moment in Germany with the scene there. But what do you make of the card? You can find it on YouTube, Universum Box Promotions. These 3 different fights are spread out over the course of the card. Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.